Will Mrs. Hageman please call roll?
Mrs. Donahue?
Here.
Mr. Elam?
Here.
Mrs. Butler?
Here.
Mrs. Leskowitz?
Here.
Mr. D?
Here.
Please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Does anyone wish to discuss?
I do need to make a minor adjustment to the recommendation. Their classified personnel. Mr. Swangham, it should actually be step 9. Step 9. And then looking at what that hourly rate is for second shift.
I'm sorry, what item did you say?
7D.
Ah, thank you.
Okay, so second shift, it should be 17.95.
Any other discussion? It is moved and seconded to adopt the agenda. We'll put the motion to a vote. Those that are in favor to adopt the agenda will, as their names are called, answer yes. Those opposed will answer no. Mrs. Hageman, please call the roll.
Mr. Elam?
Yes.
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Leskowitz?
Yes.
Mr. D?
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue?
Yes. The minutes have been made available to you on board docs. Are there any corrections? Right, if there's no corrections, then the minutes stand as approved or stand approved. Unfinished business, we'll now move into the unfinished business. The reason several of us are sitting in board member seats tonight is because we didn't feel our voices were heard when we brought concerns to the school board. Therefore, we feel it is important to put forth efforts which possibly can change that perception and or reality. As our first course of action, we plan to provide Bethel Local School District residents updates of previous statements made during our public participation and address major concerns brought to us using other avenues. We have 2 items this evening. The first one is a follow-up with regards to a parent's concern on her child's substitute teacher who was teaching stated she was not teaching students anything. The parent's concern was the fact this class is one where a student must learn each lesson in order to learn to the next lesson. Additionally, it was during an exam week. Many students felt unprepared for the midterm exam. Some stated they hadn't been taught the subject matter, yet it was going to be on their exam. So Mr. Crispin, would you mind giving us a, or I'm sorry, mind giving us a quick overview of what transpired?
First, I contacted Principal Swope the next day and reached out to the parent, had a great conversation, and got clarification of the concerns shared with that parent, what had really been going on in that class, and how department members were helping with lesson plans and the preparation for the final exam, which I think was also one of the issues. Having said that, just like to remind everybody that we have subs in and day out. Sometimes we don't have enough subs, and getting enough subs, let alone one that is familiar with the topic or content area, is an incredible challenge. And so, generally we do not communicate to parents when teachers are out. There's a substitute, and we're grateful for the folks that we have, and so I want to make sure substitutes, any that are paying attention, we appreciate what you do. And sometimes, depending on what the situation is, sometimes you get good instructions and sometimes they're kind of thrown together depending on, again, the situation. So we're always looking for subs. So if you're interested, contact Miami County ESC. And if you ever have a concern with what's taking place in the classroom with a substitute, first point of contact really needs to be the building principal. Next would be the superintendent before coming to a board meeting and, speaking publicly. So, we have that who to call list that's on our website. I think we have a stack of them back here. Just remind folks that, that resource is out there for them.
Was this procedure followed?
Pardon me?
Was this procedure followed by the speaker?
Well, no, she probably just should contact Mr. Slope first, but, depending, sometimes as a parent, you catch wind of things late and your first reaction is, well, there's board meetings, we go talk rather than get a hold of the principal. So
And
I don't know.
Yeah, and I think her real concern was that it's one of those classes where if you don't learn lesson 1, then you'll never be able to catch up to lesson 2. And it might have been a prolonged substitute. The teacher a substitute teacher may have been in that class for a long period of time. It wasn't just a sub on a Friday because somebody called in sick. I think that was really that
particular situation. We did have somebody that was knowledgeable of the content that had an emergency procedure that needed to be done, and you sent us scrambling. Again, that happens almost daily.
But I think you did get a different substitute in there now, right? It's different than the
Correct.
sub that
Yeah.
she had issues with.
Well, yeah, the person we were relying on got hired for the break. So, yeah. So we're working with that. Mr. Slope is,
Thank you. So again, we just wanted to try to close the loop on all that. And again, every friendly reminder that we will be much more efficient if everybody follows the chain of command. Because what had happened in that incident, when they bring it to the board, then we have to ask Mr. Crispin to take it back to the principal, to take it back to the parent, and then I have to follow up with the parent to find out from it. So you are going with that. So it's just more efficient. And just a reminder for those watching online or who review this to please follow the chain of command and we'll be a lot more efficient. Does anyone else on the board have any questions, comments, or concerns? This item is considered closed. Mrs. Hageman, will you please ensure the minutes illustrate a brief status update and note we consider this matter closed. Now we will go on to the next unfinished business item. Our next topic for discussion is the renewal of the earned income tax levy placed on March's ballot as a continuing levy. We had a community member contact the board requesting us to have the continuing tax levy removed from March's ballot. While it is not common practice for the board to rescind a board decision after it's been made and officially reported based solely on the fact a handful of residents disagree with the board's vote, we felt this should be publicly addressed. We feel there were many, still many questions remained unresolved surrounding what this means, how it affects students, how it affects teachers, residents, etc. As a result, we felt it was important to address those issues or concerns in this meeting as unfinished business and determine whether a decision needs to be made about the removal or not. So a little bit of background, the December board meeting, the school board voted to place our 0.75% income tax levy, which is a 5-year renewal levy, on the March 24 prior ballot as continuing tax levy. Several community members were upset and voiced their concerns on the school board via email. They would have also voiced their concerns at the December board meeting. However, the board removed public participation on the agenda items from the agenda. This just added fuel to the fire, in my opinion. From my understanding, none of the residents upset about this levy switching to a continuing levy are against supporting any levy. They're including this one. They're not anti-levy people. They're just how it went down. These community members noted they were and still are upset for the following reasons. Levy not up for renewal until November 2025, so why now? Sent a message to the board, was trying to sneak something in before new board members to their seats. Again, this is the interpretation of some community members. Continuing levy robs the taxpayers of their right to ever vote again on this levy. One resident wrote, in quote, all caps have been removed for the next 5 years per the treasurer's report and the financial picture is pretty rosy. And then if need be, we could have Tina explain what that means. Those fighting to remove the levy from the ballot argue this takes away their power by voting yes or no on a levy campaign, while others in the community say the voters voice their opinion at the poll. School is they also noted school is overextending its reach into taxpayer pockets forever, or their ability to hold the board accountable. I'd like to open this up for discussion and get input from board members on this. Please note, all of us received the same email that I just referenced that we had received from a community member with their disagreement on how that went down. Do you guys want to start, or you want to keep going?
Well, I asked Ms. Hageman if she wouldn't mind reading what will be on the ballot, just to restate that for everybody, new and old in the room. And sorry, I know, I was gonna say, I know it was on.
Yeah, no, I can't see it from back there. Okay, so, a majority affirmative vote is necessary for passage, and it says, shall an annual income tax of 3/4% on the earned income of individuals residing in the district be imposed by the Bethel Local School District to renew an income tax expiring at the end of 2025 for a continuing period of time, beginning January 1, 2026, for the purpose of current operating expenses. So you have to vote yes in order for it to be passed and be, in order for it to be passed. I don't know. So, but yeah, that's the language that'll be on the ballot or something similar. Yeah.
Thank you for reading.
You're welcome.
Sorry, you're
No, that's
a bit
okay.
under the weather today.
And my allergies and, you know, so I'm just having a hard time with warm in here. So I'm struggling with my breathing, so I apologize.
I didn't know if anybody else had any.
I'd like to address the timing issue. It is unfortunate that happened as the way it happened, but the timing is set by the Board of Elections when you can put a levy on the ballot. So we had until December 19th to get the second resolution passed and filed with the Board of Elections in order to have it on the ballot in March. And the primary thing for me is that typically when you put levies for school district levies, income tax levies on the ballot during a presidential election in November, it doesn't do well, right? Because I don't know why, it just doesn't. So it was just trying to get it out there sooner rather than later. You know, and the only way we can garner revenue is to either do an income tax or to do a property tax. This income tax brings in $2.1 million, which is the equivalent of 10.35 mils of property taxes. I personally feel like property taxes is slightly unfair because more people, you know, but yeah. So I don't see us ever not needing that $2.1 million. We're not 100% funded. That I don't know where that came from. The Fair School Funding Plan is only funded 50% this year and 66.67 next year. And the next biennium budget, we hold our, you know, cross our fingers and our toes and hope that they fully fund it, because they're only doing a sixth over 3 different biennium budgets. We don't have any caps in place like we've had in the past where you can only have 3% growth or but we still are only being funded at 50%. It looks good. So that's why I think, you know, Mr. Crispin and I were so happy that we could give our employees what they deserve, and they haven't been getting for so long. But without that income tax money, it's just not going to be possible. We'll be repeating the same thing, paying our people the least amount in the county and losing our people and going back through that rigmarole again. So I just don't see not needing it. I'm not sure if we can rescind it. I've asked the attorneys. It's really up to the Board of Elections. They have a deadline, so I will reach out to them and see if they'll let us, you know, if it's okay and when that has to be done, and let the board know. I've never done that before, so.
Well, I will say it sets a bad precedent to rescind a decision made by the school board, regardless of who the members are. While we may have new board members, we still have the same school board with the same authority. I feel the root problem actually is more so the fact residents feel that there's a fool in the community. And again, I'm just I'm just relaying what they, I'm not accusing you guys of anything, I'm just relaying what they're upset about. The board purposely rushed to get it on March's ballot because typically very few people vote in March's election. It was not made clear to the public the difference between the current renewal levy and a continuing levy. The board attached a legal document written in legal jargon as supporting documentation rather than a document written in layman's terms outlining the need and differences between a renewing versus a continuing levy. Furthermore, it's unclear whether that 0.75% can ever be raised or lowered, whether it can ever be reverted back to renewal, and whether we can ever get rid of it altogether. It's my understanding the word continuing is buried within the ballot description, which typically no one reads, so it's very possible it will pass because residents believe they're voting for a renewal levy. But on the other hand, I agree, it would be nice to have a steady stream of tax revenue as we continue to grow at a rapid rate. Even with the proposed annexation, which we had already talked about, 260 some acres, we've enrolled nearly 100 students since May of 2023, and that's without any new acreage going over new development. Thank you. The tidal wave is coming if they build the speculated 1,700 new homes in our district. Levy campaigns cost money and time. Rather than exhausting a lot of time and effort pleading with voters to pass a levy, we can apply those efforts to building a better Bethel. We always appreciate and welcome resident and community input and take comments into consideration as we do work on the board. We've had board elections every 2 years, and this particular levy is a 5-year levy. So if a board isn't representing the values and the beliefs of the majority, then vote in new members. Don't vote down the levy thinking you're going to sway the conduct and the business of the board. We just negotiated a substantial raise for our teachers. What will the consequences be if we remove the levy? Revert back to a renewal, and if it doesn't pass, then what? Understand the frustrations that are related to the actions which were taken to switch from a renewal levy and a continuing levy. But in my heart, I do believe removing the levy from the ballot. I do not believe removing the levy from the ballot is the best decision for our school, our students, staff, teachers, and so forth. At this point, I believe the way forward is to somehow educate voters so they may make an informed decision when they go to the polls to vote. Perhaps a town hall meeting, a question and answer newsletter, a briefing from yourself in layman's terms about exactly, pros and cons. Maybe even let's get the kids involved, and maybe it could be a project for the newspaper. Maybe they can do some investigating and interact with the Board of Elections. Or maybe some community residents could actually go out and maybe collect some of this information and get it out to the public. We can't move forward if we keep looking in our rearview mirror. So we weren't really sure what to do with this situation, but we did want to make sure that we address it again, and we don't ever want our community to feel like that they were not paying it, or they don't quite understand, or they feel,
Right.
Jolted or something.
Yeah, I mean, the reason for those resolutions is they're required, right? That if when you put a levy on the ballot or income tax on the ballot, there's very specific language, and that's why we have attorneys write that stuff up for us, because if I miss a comma,
Yeah.
or that, so I did try, and I apologize if that didn't come across to everyone, to say that this is a renewal, but we're asking that it be continuing, meaning that, we're not gonna put it back on the ballot, it'll be continuing. Can we reduce it? Can we, I don't know, we can certainly look at that. I'm hopeful that, eventually we'll be able to say, well, maybe we don't need to renew this property tax. I'm not saying that now because there's too many variables that are out there, but I would be more inclined to say to the board, don't renew a property tax before you don't renew an income tax, especially an earned income tax that only taxes earned wages. So that's just my, recommendation, so.
So all caps are removed except that we're only 50% funded.
Right, the fair school funding plan is only 50%.
Next year will be 67%. And the
Correct.
next one will probably not happen because of all the money being spent on private schools.
That's scary, yeah, on all
Yes.
the vouchers, right, because they've
Yes.
blown their budget on that, so we hope. But
According to the Ohio Department of Taxation, all 8 of the 9 public schools in the county have an income tax, ranging from 0.75% for us to 2% for Covington. So ours is the lowest of the county. Do you know what the fee is? What does the school wind up paying? Because I was told at one time that it was a lot of money, like $10,000 to $20,000, something like that, every time that you put it on on a ballot.
Yeah, it depends upon if it's like whatever the cost is for it, then you have to pay a certain percentage of the cost. If it's a special, I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and look, because this is the first, I don't know, I have to look,
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
yeah.
And currently, as far as a levy committee, there isn't one because the
isn't one.
last one was my daughter-in-law. The last two levies, she was the chairman and my son was the treasurer. And now they're ineligible to do that. So maybe somebody in the audience tonight would like to volunteer to be the levy chairman. Perhaps, or maybe they know somebody that would, but we would need someone to do that. What?
Why do you need a chairman? You've already passed it. It'd be on the ballot.
Well, I think, my personal opinion, I think that now that it's on the ballot, we just need to educate the voters and let the voters decide which way to go, and then.
And every 5-year forecast says if all of our levies pass.
Yes,
they
yeah.
do.
And between, we want, again, if we had the conversations about the vision of the school, where we want to take the school, and if we're looking at implementing more classes, if we're trying to eliminate one of the study halls, and that all costs money, that's another teacher, that might be another, whatever expenses to that. And then again, with the expansion and the development, I just don't see it's and just from May, we've had nearly 100 new students, just from May of 2023 with no new development. So I guess it's already a done deal. Like I said, I don't want to set the precedence that we keep going back and undoing a decision that was already made. And if there's, so we wanted to bring this up though, and perhaps come up with something of a way forward of how to educate the voters. So, because I'll be honest, I had no idea what any of that transpired, what happened during that meeting. I didn't know the difference between a continuing and a renewal. I didn't know that it was just for the people who work, although Mrs. Sebastian did explain it in that meeting, but I didn't know until then. I knew nothing about these levies.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and if I would have went in to the voting poll, I would have voted yes, because I would have saw levy for our school, and I would have voted yes. Because I feel like if they're asking for money, they need it, and the only thing it's gonna do is hurt the kids and the students and the teachers and the staff if we don't approve. So, but I don't want any of our community members or residents to feel like that they weren't heard, or that their questions aren't important or are answered, or to make, so they can make an educated decision when they go into the polls. So I don't know if we should make a motion to develop some sort of, I don't know what the right answer is, if it's a town hall, if it's a briefing by you, if it's a briefing by Board of Elections in conjunction with the prosecutor, I don't know. So we're looking for some suggestions. If possibly a community member would wanna maybe get something together, but not a negative.
I mean, we could certainly do an FAQ sheet. I know that there's been a lot of changes in the law as far as what I can and cannot do for levy or income tax, so I have to, I have to visit that, and consult an attorney, but we certainly can do an FAQ. I just can't say vote or don't vote. Yeah,
But you-
so I will put the information together, yeah, certainly.
Okay, thank you. And then maybe if you maybe you can get it put on the website too. We have a Q&A levy website page or something like that, where people can just go up to the website and even have the option of submitting a question. So then they can, if it's not addressed in your Q&A, then they can submit their question. And then I don't know how we get the people that aren't on electronic. We could do a final forms. You could push a message out that way, perhaps. I don't know if you want to entertain coordinating with the high school newspaper to get them to help or set up something.
There's not.
Yes, there is, because I got interviewed for it, and it was published in November. But
I did not know that.
I didn't either until I got the email. Yeah, and then they published it on the school website. Yeah, so that's what I was thinking. Well, hey, get those guys involved too, because that's like real world stuff that we can supplement in the classroom, looking at the chalkboard kind of education. Just a thought.
Sorry, I'm just doing stupid.
Yeah. You see where I'm at here. I do not have a laptop I'm carrying around. But yeah, I'm old school too, but I hope that will resolve some of this anxiety and anger about how people felt. So I appreciate you doing that and putting it together and taking all those recommendations and figure out what works best for everybody. And then if you do have it, questions available on the website, then we can certainly get more input too as to recommendations or suggestions. So if no vote is necessary, then I would, on this vote, on this note, I would say that it is closed for unfinished business. Or should we leave it on unfinished business so we can follow back with the? Okay, well,
Yeah.
okay.
The public participation, we have just Julie on agenda items and then the other two are for later.
Oh, okay. So just Julie's right now then, right? That's what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. If I just read this?
Yes.
If you wish to address the board, you must complete the following form. Comments shall be limited to 5 minutes. Once the form has been completed, please give the form to the treasurer upon your arrival. The board policy regarding addressing the board can be found on the back of this form. You are not permitted to use specific names of any Bethel personnel or students in your address. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. No person may address or question others or direct their comments to general members of the public. Thank you for your cooperation. So Miss Julie Reese, about agenda items. I see we have the next one. Come on down.
Well, new setup then.
Hey, it's not new. It came the first year I started working with it. That is not new.
Can I start? Okay, I only got a couple things tonight, just questions. The first is that they're kind of in order of the, they're not.
Okay.
On the substitutes, what is the pay for these positions? I've asked before about this, but I'm hoping that maybe we can get a table published that shows the salaries for the substitutes. Along the classified salary, or add it to the classified chart. The second thing is there's a student worker listed, but it doesn't say for what job or area. On the board policies, so these are the ones that were not the whole list that we all suggested, but the other two. The interdistrict open enrollment removes definitions of words used later in the policy. And for the meeting one, I would have suggested eliminating the pre-meeting, given that the work sessions have been established, and just allow anyone to add to the work session when they have another meeting. And the last thing is, I couldn't see the farm lease, but hopefully the date's on this.
Adjusted, can I ask you a question? Adjusted for what? The dates.
Well, so the old, you know, some have to correct me here, the old one was like March to March.
Yeah.
Or March to
March to
February.
February.
But for a farmer, they need to know earlier so they can prepare the ground and put, you know, fertilizer down or whatever, long before March. So they need to know before that, so it's better to contract.
So we're doing like I'm recommending we do like a weird contract, but it'll be 10 months, 2 years, something like that. So we get it to where it ends December 31st and get it back on track. Yeah.
Thank you.
So would you mind adding what she just said?
Mhm.
And then we'll include it in unfinished business with feedback or follow-up?
Sure.
Okay, so now we'll go on to the consent agenda for the treasurer's report. What items, if any, do the board members wish to remove from the consent agenda so they can be discussed individually?
Well, I don't have anything on the treasurer's report. I took everything off because we're not balanced yet. And so I wanted to make sure we got all our i's dotted and t's crossed, w's balanced, all that before we put the final reports together for the board for December.
Okay.
So I just removed all the reports for the month of December. So, you know, may need a special later on to go through that and give us some extra time to discuss all the financial stuff. Mr. Crispin doesn't have to be at that one if he doesn't want to be, if that's okay with the board, so.
And actually, can I ask you a favor then too?
Mhm.
During that, maybe if we could, since we're there anyways, could we have the treasurer 101 brief?
Yeah.
Like, you know, like what funds are available, what they fund and all that.
Sure can.
Thank you. Mr. Crispin, will you please give your report?
Thank you, Madam President. Okay, item 6A, important dates. This is where we usually put district dates, not so much sport events, maybe performances, things of interest to the general public. Always encourage folks to look at our calendar that's featured at the bottom of our webpage. Personnel. So this is the first meeting of the new year, and one of the ways I keep the board abreast of transactions is a little tally sheet there. And you remember Betsy Griffith already submitted her retirement for the conclusion of this year, so she's number one. And then the tracker then in executive content just kind of keeps you where we're at in the process, and if we had an offer or reached an agreement and still wait pending board approval, we'll be able to read all of that there. And then, as earlier mentioned, we hit 2,000 again with our enrollment, and again, with talk of annexation, Tina and I know that we need to take a look at our live birth rate to see what's really headed our way. Why? The OFC documents showed a projection that we're supposed to start going down next year, particularly at the elementary, and just doesn't feel that way.
No.
And we're thinking we're still going to continue to increase 70 to maybe 100 students, maybe even more this incoming kindergarten class. So we've already started conversations with our elementary principals about how we're going to shift, because right now it's pretty nice and tidy the way we have it set up. For kindergarten wing, we have that extra one around the corner, but that's all going to change. And so it's not going to be as neat and tidy, but we may have to get creative with our K-5 room, or young fives room, but we'll see. But anyways, those are our enrollments. That's where we're at the end of the year, calendar year. Questions over those three pieces?
Don't everybody take a deep breath, but I got a question. It'll be short.
Yeah.
This is just something that I was just wondering about, because I understand it's January, so you took it down to 0 to start over. But wouldn't it be better going by school year, so we would have a running total of the school year resignations, retirements for the actual school year, as opposed to a calendar year? Just a question.
Let me think about that. Yeah.
Okay. From my
They start earlier, and
Yeah.
so that's where it gets.
I know, and because then you start getting really in March, April, May, those really become your 24, 25 changes maybe. But actually until July 1.
But in this, like the case with Betsy, she gave us her retirement early, but she did that in the fall.
Right,
so it's like, where do you?
I know.
To me, this is what we're going to be looking at 24-25 school year.
Okay.
And that's our count.
Okay.
But I see it does get confusing, but we do appreciate when folks let us know ahead of time.
Yeah.
So I don't want to.
No, not at all. I'm just talking about our accounting.
Yeah.
Let it roll how it rolls, but how we present it and look at it. That was all I was.
Yeah, let me chew on that.
Okay.
I get the confusion. I think maybe Natalie brought it up at one of our previous meetings about when's this thing start over, because the hiring for this year was massive.
Yeah.
And so adding on for the 24-25 year would have been
right. Oh, yeah.
Pretty lost,
It would
even
have been
with
bleak.
pretty colors and whatever.
Yeah, I don't know, because I come from a school background and I work, everything is by 23, 24, 24, 25. So
yeah,
when you throw a
calendar
January in there, it just makes my mind flip.
Yeah. Well, last year things started happening in February. So that's why it's like, now I didn't expect that we were going to still be hiring at late July and early August, but,
Nobody does.
that was a long stretch.
Yep.
So,
Got it.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you. That's just,
It's a good thought. I get the.
Are there any questions concerning the superintendent's report anymore? Okay, we'll go on to item, I'm sorry, what? Item 7, recommendations, classified personnel. What items, if any, do the board members wish to remove from the consent agenda so they can be discussed individually? If there is no, is there?
Wait, what section did you say?
7
Removed from
recommendations for
superintendent, so we're now
classified
on
personnel.
section
Yeah,
7.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, if there are no objections, these items will be adopted. Because there are no objections, items Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and Delta are adopted. I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
what, you, I would just like to talk about D, is, mine's
so-
not numbered correctly.
Oh, well, unless it
I'm
changes.
looking at the wrong one, I think.
7 recommendations, classified personnel.
Is that our custodian?
Yes.
And we're gonna get to discussion.
Okay.
So we have to do a motion, a second, a
Okay.
discuss, and a vote.
Okay, okay,
So, so did we get a second?
I'll second.
And then Mrs. Hageman, will you please provide discussion on items Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and Delta? So do you wanna-
Did you motion?
Yeah.
Oh, I apologize. Thank you, Mr. B. I'll defer to you, sir.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome.
So, 7A, yeah, so, Mrs. Reese, thank you for the reminder that we need to put together, pull all our substitute, compensation packages together. They are in different spots and, we can do that. But we need to put that, we'll get that out, promise. So we have, in item B, we have leave without pay recommendation. Student workers are always buildings and grounds folks. And we'll make that clear going forward. Under new employment, Derek Swingham, was previously employed here as late as, October 21st. Is, when we did an adjustment to his, compensation and unfortunately he ended up leaving. But he's kind of like the prodigal son, you know, sometimes the grass isn't always greener. And we're short people and we're short one position and he'd like to come back. So while the application that was uploaded there for you to look at was dated 2019. So that's when he actually started the district and listed 1 year of experience. But anyways, this is what we were paying him. So just bringing him back in at the same step, but on second shift, first shift. He's previously shift.
So, so I'm trying to track this. So his experience, he only has 1 year of experience, but he worked here before, but he only has 1 year experience now, but he's only changing shifts. But
So the information that was loaded is, if I understand.
So it's an
it
old
correctly, is
application,
an
it's
old-
original application.
So that- okay,
He's
so that
worked here
wasn't
since
helpful.
2019.
Okay,
And so, you know, what we've tried to do with folks is look at their resumes, find life experiences while a person may have been working in a nursing home, but they worked in the kitchen, they presented meals. We tried to give credit. We did that especially with our current pay schedule, just to get people to be more competitive and move them up the pay schedule. So Mr. Swingham was one of those folks that said, you know, I got hired in at this, but here's everything I did at this spot, this spot, this spot that was custodial work. And so we've done that for several employees. and, to move them up. Thanks, Gabe.
Okay, so how long did he work for us? From when to when?
I think probably the 1920 school
And
year
then he
was the
left.
first,
Okay. And then so then he left when?
this
23,
fall.
23, so he had 3 years there. So what step did he leave on? I'm just worried that if he comes back in, that those who have stayed now and have worked that time are
He's
now
coming back.
making less than.
He's making the same, well, he's not, because he's on the second shift. We have a shift differential.
Shift differential.
Yeah, so he's still on the same step that he was in the fall when he left it. So he's not getting an extra
Okay.
step.
I get it, but how does that, I mean, the people who've stayed, you know, and he's coming back, is he going to jump over them? They've been here 5 years and now he comes back and he's
Well, he still has that same experience.
making more than, yeah,
So if he was brand new off the street,
yeah,
we would count that experience the same.
okay.
So this was a late ad, and I literally didn't, I mean, it was like literally, I was walking out the door. So what does a chart look like? What does that chart look like to show the steps? So is it based off of experience? So if he's never, if he's never been a custodian before, he'd be at step 1, and if he's been a
Zero.
custodian.
Step zero.
Zero.
And then if he has, what have he got? How many years experiences? Yeah, as a custodian,
He was at step 9.
When he left,
but how many years of experience as a custodian does he have?
well,
I'd have to go back and
because, yeah,
count.
So that's what he should be paid off of, right? Not because he had experience in something else.
No, the superintendent can place employees on the salary
okay.
schedule.
I just want to be equitable for people who are still here. I don't want to drop somebody in who's, you know,
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
I totally get it.
And it's not, I know
that's-
you're not supposed to talk about your salary, but I can tell you,
They talk
I get
about
it.
their salary.
they talk about their salaries and that's.
So my understanding is he said he has on his application from 2019, he had 1 year. Correct? Is that what you said?
That's what it says.
And
Yeah.
so plus the 3 or 4 years that he's been here, minus a handful of months, that's how many, is years of experience. Correct? Is that correct?
Well, he left here and went to Tecumseh doing the same job, so he's still got experience, yeah, so he's just coming back.
Okay,
So how many years of experience?
9, he left at 9 and that's where he's coming back at 9.
Place
Step
him at
9 or-
step 9.
okay. Okay,
And so that experience equates to that step.
Yes, I mean, I can send you
Yeah, yeah.
copies of the classified schedule.
Well, I just want to make, before we vote, I want to make sure I understand it, but-
Mhm.
and
I
you,
just wanted
So
clarification.
because
here's what's been going on here. Okay, folks, and I don't know why, I'm not finger pointing, I'm just telling you, this has been my experience. Is we've had employees working for us that were hired, and again, they accepted the contract and signed it and started working for us, accepting the pay. But for some reason, their experience was ignored. We didn't give them credit for that experience. And especially with the pay scale we have. And as I've shared since, we're just not competitive. We're having a hard time getting folks to even fly here. It's usually a last ditch effort. You know, if they can't find anything else, they'll come here. So, you know, I've gone back in situations when it's been brought to my attention that, hey, I was here, I did do for good service and this kind of thing, even though my title was this. And when I applied, I didn't count that, but can that count? We've moved folks, we've counted that like experience. We've done that before with supplemental positions where somebody's been defense coordinator or assistant director for 10 years. Well, we've done, you know, we were hiring him as a director or the head coach. Well, to say that they start at step 0 is really, it's true, but it's not true because there have been a lot of overlapping things. And so So my practice has always been, I'll give them whatever that time is, half of it.
Would it be similar
Just
to,
to hang your hat on.
would it be similar to a teacher counting their military experience?
Could be, yeah, yeah.
I think experience is experience. It doesn't.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
chart doesn't say
That's
it's
why
experience.
I think it's disingenuous, it's not fair to say, just because you didn't have the title, means you start at step zero.
Yeah, I'm just, as long as his experience mirrors up to that chart, then.
Yeah.
His placement at step 9 is warranted by his experience.
And I just wanted to be fair and consistent across the board because there was a food service worker who did not get credit for service at current jobs and was slated to start at step 0 and then therefore had to choose to take something else. So I just want, and that was on a board docs for review for hiring. And so I just want to make sure and state that the consistency and being fair and equal to everybody who comes in, those evaluations have to be made exactly the same for every single person who comes in. Because that was just this past summer, and we can talk about it offline, and I think it already has been brought up once, but I just wanted to be consistent and fair.
And I will
Yeah.
say that's my argument for a policy, is you have to add a policy in place that you will be paid for your experience based on X, Y, and Z at using this chart or whatever. And then there's no question. It doesn't matter if you're food service, it doesn't matter if you're grounds, that's the policy. It's not,
I think, in Natalie, I'd like to talk to you about that, because I remember looking at that and saying, where is it? So we can
Yeah.
we can follow up on that. But, I think, this is less what you're encountering here. It's kind of what Tina and I have encountered. This has been a small district for a long time with 500, 600 kids, 50, 60 employees. Now we're 190, 2,000 kids, and we can't get by on, hey, don't forget to do this, that, and the other.
exactly.
And plus the turnover at the top. I'm the 14th superintendent, 35 years.
Mhm.
A lot gets lost. Things do go, things get lost. And institutional history, how did we get here? Why are things the way they are? And we need to put some of those things down. That way, the next folks, we're not reinventing the wheel. And looking at the next person saying, hey, Tina, how did this get this way? I don't know. I just got here too. And,
And then everything's standardized and it's consistent, and it's something you have to refer back to.
Okay.
So, I'm good.
so
And
point
I
taken.
just have one other discussion point, please, on for the substitutes for Mrs. Rhodes, secretary. Looks like she already was called into action in December for her services, and I just was wondering, did she get substitute pay or did she get the
She hasn't gotten any pay because she's never been hired as a secretary.
Yes, but she will get the daily substitute pay?
She'll get the secretary substitute rate for the number of hours that she worked.
Okay,
Yes,
okay,
because she's only been hired as a substitute bus driver.
correct.
So
Yeah,
we
and
needed,
the instructor.
And on board instruction.
and an on-board instructor, correct. So when we got the timesheet, we were pretty surprised that she came in and worked as a secretary, but I understand that needed to be filled, so that's why it's on the board agenda. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're
Yeah, I just caught the date, so I just.
Yeah. So we didn't know until we got the timesheet, and I'm sure Ms. Rhodes just said, yeah, sure, I'll help, so.
Thank you. And just one last question on the student worker. Those are students that just work during the school day, right? When they have some empty class periods and they can help out where they can't. Okay, thank you. I just
And
wanted-
they're paid minimum wage.
Yeah, thank you. I just double check. Thank you.
Any more discussion? It is moved and seconded to accept the consent agenda items. We'll put the motion to vote. Those in favor of adopting the motion to accept the consent agenda will, as their names are called, answer yes. Those opposed will answer no. Mrs. Hageman, please call the roll.
Mrs. Butler,
Yes.
Mrs. Leskowitz.
Yes.
Mr. B,
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue.
Yes.
Mr. Elam.
Yes.
I forgot your name for a second, my fault.
Easily forgotten.
Next on the agenda is certified personnel. What items, if any, do the board members wish to remove from the consent agenda so they can be discussed individually? If there are no objections, these items will be adopted. Because there are no objections, items Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie are adopted. I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Mrs. Hageman, will you please provide discussion on those three items, Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie?
Defer to you, Mr. Christian.
Thanks.
Oh.
So, item 8A, we have, two teachers that have been, putting in, time, getting additional credits and are ready to move up to the next step and get raised. So congratulations to Jessica and Sarah. And then monthly, you are presented, you're presented with a list of approved subs by the Miami County ESC.
Not much of a list.
Not much of a list. Yeah, so, again, go to plug in, always looking for more subs, contact Miami County ESC. And, those are my two recommendations for certified personnel.
It is moved and seconded to accept the consent agenda items. We will put the motion to vote. Those in favor of adopting the motion to accept the consent agenda will, as their names are called, answer yes. Those opposed will answer no. Mrs. Hageman, please call roll.
Mrs. Leskowitz,
Yes.
Mr. B,
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue.
Yes.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Mrs. Butler.
Yes.
Now we'll move on to item 9, the business consent agenda. What items, if any, do the board members wish to remove from the consent agenda so they can be discussed individually? Do you have some items?
I would like to move, there's just the two of them, but I would like to move item B to a separate vote, please.
Anything else?
Move that off that consent.
I would also like to move Alpha, Echo, and Hotel, please. Is there anything else? We will move items 9 Alpha, Bravo, Echo, and Hotel. Remaining consent agenda, the remaining consent agenda items are as follows: 9 Charlie, 9 Delta, 9 Fox, and 9 Golf. If there are no objections, these will be adopted. Are we off?
I don't have.
The next is because I had printed this on Sunday, and then we just got one today in this meeting. So now I have to.
Yeah, I took the tax budget off, so.
So I would like to, so are we in agreement? I would like to remove the board policies for Neola the first reading, the board policies for Neola the second reading, the Bethel Farm lease, and the professional services contracts. And then that would leave review and approve resolution for tax budget 2025, approval of tax budget 2025, state employment relations board, and donations. And then I must be missing one if I got.
Well, I don't think we're doing the tax budget.
Right.
We're not doing Charlie.
Okay, so,
Correct.
okay.
We're not doing Charlie. We have to get used to that.
I can say C, but it doesn't.
But you,
You know, it's,
all the Athens Sky Park, right?
and then so that just leaves us the approval of the tax budget, the state employment relations board, and donations as a consent agenda, correct?
I'm just, have the donations. It's donation.
Yeah, it would just be
Oh, okay.
donation.
Okay, so then we'll just, so
And A, you're not really voting on, you have to read through all that. That's your first reading.
yes,
So no vote, just, no, not here. You have to read them
At your house.
at your leisure.
It's very leisurely.
Yeah.
oh, well, so I
In
guess I
your
was,
jammies with a bottle of wine.
So they were in the consent agenda, so I guess that's where I got confused. I thought that they had to be voted.
Yeah, that is a little confusing.
So-
You have to move
Everyone
first
has a vote?
reading somewhere else,
Oh.
yeah.
So really, alls we have to look at is the Bethel farm lease and the professional services contract separately, and then we can just do the donations as the consent agenda? Or just discuss all three of them and,
Mrs. Donahue, you wanted to move B, right, which is the second reading.
right,
Yes,
do you still wanna move it if you have, do we have to vote
that's
on
the
that one?
second.
Yes,
Oh, that's why you want.
that's the
okay.
second reading, so you do have to vote on that one. First reading, we do not need to vote. So we're not doing the tax budget because if the board allows a special, we'll just go through all the financials with me and the board, one on one.
Okay.
And then Bethel Farm lease donations.
Professional service.
Oh, the professional service contract and then the approval, so. Taking out B.
So, yes, so B is the second reading, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we're gonna take out the farm lease, so we can, do we need to discuss that? Does anybody feel like they, other than the dates, I guess, right?
Right, we can discuss it as part of the consent
Okay.
agenda if you want.
Yeah, we don't have to take that out. And then the professional services contract.
Right.
We can leave that in then too. Is there anything? Anything?
Yeah, we can do it.
All right, so we'll just adopt it as is, right? And we can have an individual discussion on that. Okay, so it is moved and seconded. Do we have a motion to accept the agenda?
Hold on. So we're gonna leave B in, but I'd like to.
Oh, I'm
Pull
sorry.
that, yeah.
We have to pull that
Oh,
one.
you wanna pull B?
Yes,
I apologize. Yeah,
thank you.
so the rest, we're gonna,
Do it as part of the consent.
okay. So then the motion would be part of the consent agenda is everything except B.
Yeah.
I'll leave Jackie do the alphabet chart.
Yeah.
I'll make some-
C, D, and F, correct.
To adopt the consent calendar minus item 9B,
Right,
or excluding item 9B.
yeah, because it'll just be, yeah.
Okay, so then are there any discussions? On the first one
That
would be,
was a motion.
That was a motion.
oh, sorry,
I'll second.
second? Okay, and then a discussion, so that we'll handle the B next. So really, all we have to handle right now is the Bethel farm lease and the donations and the professional services, contract, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
We put out for bid the farm lease. And all bids or proposals were due by December 14th. We got one proposal back in, and it's the gentleman that's been doing the farming for us. And so he provided a new contract for us, and his liability insurance, as Mrs. Reese mentioned, it was on some wacky, based upon when I got here and we did some changes, but the term of the lease is now for 2 years, 10 months upon board approval, beginning March 1st, 2024, ending on December 31st, 2026. That way it will end in December. You'll put the bids out every December, and it will give the farmers a better opportunity of knowing what comes up, so. He's offered $9,360 payable in 2 equal installments of $46.80. Which is just a little bit more than what we've been getting,
Yes,
it's pretty comparable, yeah. So just need the board's approval to go ahead and, offer that to Mr. I can breathe, Benham, and continue that for the new year.
Any other discussions? Okay, we will put a motion to a vote. Those in favor of adopting the motion to accept the consent agenda items for the farm lease, donations, and professional service contract. Mrs. Hageman, please call the roll.
Mrs. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Mrs. Butler,
Yes,
Mrs. Leskowitz.
Yes.
Mr. B.
Yes.
Okay, and now we need to go to the board policies for the second reading.
I'd like to ask for a delay of this, for another meeting because of a couple of the things that I noticed. Number one is that there is a first reading of the same policy that comes up in the long list. And so I don't see that there's value voting on that now and then voting on it again, unless I got that confused. It looked, that is, sorry. That is the Fair Labor Standards Act.
Yeah, we took that one off because I thought we were just I only wanted to change the pay period dates. But there's more language that the federal and state law requires, so we put it down in the first reading.
Okay, so that was
That's why it's on the first.
Yeah, that's why I took it off second, because it added some additional language that I didn't know was there before, so.
Okay.
I just wanted to change my dates, and they said, no, I had to have all this other stuff, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I did not notice that yesterday. Or well, today when I looked back again, I missed that. But for the regular meeting, policy PO 0165.1, I feel like the language is incorrect for the intent. And I just like the opportunity to review this in a work session. The way it's worded, originally when we developed, I guess, this policy or added the sentence in 2 years ago, we were hoping that, and I think it's worked pretty good, that the responsibility of the superintendent as far as building the agenda in cooperation with the board president was to include one other board member selected on a rotating basis to prepare the agenda. Again, an English teacher is probably more suited, but I don't believe that that's written the way that we intended it to. And I do believe it's been wrong all along. So I'd like to take another look at that, please. Just so we can make sure that it's written the way we intended it to, and the way that we're going to. And the idea was that and again, it may all be resolved if we do a work session and we decide that we don't even need an agenda preparation. It just depends on where we're going, but I think we can delay this. I don't see a real rush to vote on this tonight, unless you know of any other time sensitive need to do that. And then the second reading, as was already mentioned, the, let's see, I was trying to think, Norm Burkhardt at Neola in July appears to have struck out some definitions, but yet then uses those words as part of his statements for open enrollment. I don't find this to be very well aligned, and I would definitely leave the definition in if addressing it. And I know that he took that out. I don't believe that it changed in the other readings. It's not a big deal, but
He took those out because they no longer apply, correct?
well,
But
but
it's
it's
references.
it's written and referenced in the open enrollment statement.
Because under open enrollment, the last line, it says that permits the admission of students to this district from adjacent districts or any other district. But up here, he's crossed out adjacent district. So why do we line through it above there, but label it in there? So I'm with you if there's not a time sensitive for, so we have two or three on second reading, just two, right? Two. Yeah.
Definition.
So you want to move these to,
And I would go ahead, Danny. I'm sorry.
No,
I didn't mean to.
no.
Okay. Sorry. Apologize. I don't know. I would move to delay the second readings. from tonight's meeting, if that's a motion.
Mhm. And do we have to set a date, just delay to the next meeting or?
If you want to table it,
You can move
you
to
can
have it
table it
tabled.
and automatically go to the next meeting.
Yes.
Business.
Okay, but then we have to do the next. fiscal
Correct.
year,
Well,
right?
does that mean the very next meeting or the very next regular meeting? So if we have a treasurer's meeting, do we have to bring it up there?
No, because that's a special.
Okay.
That's regular meeting.
Right.
So do you want to delay it or table it? If we delay it,
It's the same thing.
oh, it is the same thing? Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
You put the motion out to delay,
But,
sorry.
you put the motion out to delay the two agenda items that we have for second reading. Is there a second?
A second.
Is there any more discussion? It has been moved and seconded to accept the consent, or I'm sorry, to accept the agenda items for second reading to be tabled. And they will be read again or reviewed again at the next regular meeting in February. Ms. Hageman, can we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Butler,
Yes.
Mr. Beebe,
yes.
Mrs. Leskowitz,
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Elo.
Yes.
So now do we go to our first reading and provide?
So generally, first readings, we put them out publicly. There is a lot there. This is, it looks large, but as I think you mentioned earlier on, a lot of these changes are taking out ODE and adding DEW. There are two new board policies that Neola is recommending. Well, we need to have care of students with active seizures disorders, 5337, and then the 6240 Board of Revisions, complaints and counter. You can probably speak more to that, but generally what we've done in the past is first reading is presenting them to you. You take time to read them, call whoever, either Tina, myself, and get clarifications. If there is, question that you have that we can't answer, you can call our Neola rep and get you clarification. And then that way, when we come into that second work session, we can say, well, I talked to Matt or Tina, and this is what I found out about this. And then that last meeting's we just we voted through. So, this is a good one to start on, because again, not too heavy, just those two new ones. And whereas I think the last one was the largest deal I put out, the big changes. Third grade reading guarantee is similar to change, welcome change, but sigh of relief over here.
Yeah.
So that's, again, the other thing, and again, we this at another time, is this group seemed very interested in policy. I've had board members sit with me when the Neola rep comes and be part of that review, and that way there's 3 sets of ears and eyes and hearing from the Neola rep. And incidentally, we are getting new, so. Yeah.
Well, and that leads me to my first question I have in here is, can we possibly look, maybe not a decision tonight, but look at having a policy review committee? Whereas, so like for example, when I read through the third grade reading policy, I didn't feel comfortable putting all my comments in there because I would have liked to have heard from the reading teachers of what else they would be added, or the nurses. There was 2 in there for medication and the immunizations. And I know only from talking to some of the school nurses that it's always a real problem at the beginning of the year to get people to submit their immunizations and stuff. And so I would want to add, one of my notes was to add in that policy that if a student does not provide their immunization record by the first day of school, they will not be allowed into school until that record is provided. Then it's in policy, versus the nurses having to call 15 times and wait for 2 months before, or however long, I mean, whatever the case may be. So I was thinking if we had a policy review committee, the or the policies that were applicable to the nursing staff, they would get a chance to review it. The policies that were applicable to the reading teachers, they would get a chance to review it and ensure it all says what would help them execute their duties.
Yeah, so, you know, my experience with Neola is when they put out an update or a new policy, they give you options to select, to put in a deadline or something like that. And so, you know, I'm wondering, and these policies evolve, so when they're initially adopted, that type of thing. So, you know, before doing something like that, if you had a specific one, we get that original template and see, you know, was that a choice or not? Does that make sense? Is it legal? Can we set a deadline and say, if you don't have them, you're out? You know, generally when we have new stuff come across, I'll involve administration or whoever's, it might be impacted by that policy to see if it's up to snuff
So you do
for
get
us.
feedback.
But, you know, the care of students with active, that's, doesn't matter. That's,
right.
that's ORC, that's ours, we have to have it, we have to do the training, and so.
Right.
Not much to discuss there, other than how we're gonna do it,
Right.
so, which is on our end of things. Yeah.
But other policies, there might be some areas where other people could input something like that, that they would, of course. Right, so do you just want to go through each one? Because I have. Or we're not going back to this, okay. So where are we at with these then? Like if we had comments and stuff, we just meet with you offline?
Yeah, you can
Okay.
call me, come in, if there's somebody else that you've already spoken with, that shares, you know, have the same questions. That helps make this more efficient. Doesn't mean we're gonna get all the kinks worked out for that work session, but if you're really digging in, there's probably a lot of it. And so, yeah, just give me a call,
Okay.
just give me an email, yep.
Yep, I'm gonna do that. All right, so we don't have to vote on that, right?
Right.
Oh, so now we just open up for discussions, so Ms. Henry and Ms. Brewer, you guys. Oh.
I just want to welcome new board members. I'm looking forward to working with you. Not a lot has happened since the last time we met. We took a break for a little bit, came back. I do want to thank Mrs. Trisha and all the nurses for our educational progress day when we returned. A lot of the staff members were certified to do CPR, me being one of them. I've never been certified to do CPR, and they had Kettering Health come in and we did it, and it was fantastic. Also at the same time, you could then sign up for another meeting, if you will. It was called Stop the Bleed, and it shows you how to do a tourniquet and, you know, gauze and all that stuff. And unfortunately, it's something we have to talk about. So I do appreciate that. That was a very good way to come back instead of, you know, sitting in boring. No, I do appreciate that. CPR certified. Yeah, welcome, and let's go home.
Thank you. Next is facilities update.
Yeah, we're still working on a few punch list items in the building. If you walk the halls of the building, you'll notice that some of the tiles look newer, and they are. Looking to a couple things going on with our flooring. We were looking to some of the workmanship was kind of lacking. There were visible seams, and some were trip hazards, and some were just collecting dirt and okay, so those have been repaired. We're trying to find right combination, right recipe, if you will, for cleaning and maintaining the floor with that matte finish. we're finding doesn't take much for it to look dirty. And so, we've had the manufacturers brought in rep from, cleaning person or cleaning folks that supply the stripper and the wax and that type of thing. So working out those pieces, it's a lot of floor. It's a lot of floor, and it's my understanding is we went with that tile because it was supposed to be less take care of, and
Well,
so but our folks are figuring it out, and it is durable. It's durable.
okay.
So, and the carpet's good. So that's the big one, the green bench as you walk in to the K5. We're working on a solution there because with the laminate meets on the corner, the green to green, kids sit down there and start picking. Yeah, so we're looking for a different solution other than, putting 10,000 volts through it.
Mousetraps.
Yeah, mousetrap, right. Hey. So let me think. Those are really the two big issues. We have a meeting. We talked earlier about scheduled maintenance and that type of thing. So part of the deal with Garmin Miller is that they're going to present kind of an overall. This is how you should keep up with the building. Here's a timeline of when things ought to be replaced or maintained and that type of thing. So that meeting is, I think, next Wednesday. So this is where shaking with facilities.
And then there is no technology committee update, is that correct? Okay. And then the liaison. whoever it is, right?
Governor signed Senate Bill 91. Bill makes changes to laws regarding fraud, waste, and abuse of public funds. Take effect on March 26th. The governor vetoed House Bill 68. The bill would prohibit certain procedures to alter a minor's child's sex and designate this act as the Ohio Saving Adolescents from Experimentation Act. The bill also included House Bill 6, which would enact the Save Women's Sports Act to require schools, state institutions of higher education, and private colleges to designate separate single-sex teams and sports for each sex. But I heard on the radio that we'll provide that tomorrow. And then Senate Bill 208 would require a local school district to include in its open enrollment policies an exception for military children. That's all we have.
Thank you. And then for the Miami Valley CTC, I've been neglecting to share that there are 43 seniors and 41 juniors that currently attend. And there was nearly all the students who were in attendance at school that day on November 29th, 30th. The sophomores that attended, the applications for attending opened on November 30th, but they will close on January 31st. And that doesn't mean if you don't get it in by the 31st, though, you can continue to apply if you decide later. You just won't be in the initial draft review of career program selection. And that actually occurs on March 31st and is called the Spring Partner Meeting. And that's when the letters for acceptance are distributed at for the kids and their families. And that's all I noticed. Again, they're off doing, they have a lot of accomplishments and competitions based on the students who are achieving and have qualified for other competitions. So hopefully we'll have some more to report on that here in the next month or so, but they are busy as well. And that's all I have for tonight.
Excellent, thank you. Right, I'd like to entertain a motion to go into executive session for the following reasons.
You've got two
I'm
more.
sorry. Oh, my bad. Sorry. Public reading. We have, if you wish to address the board, you must complete the following form You guys want me to read this again?
No.
I'm sorry,
No,
that's nice. So Mrs. B, end of meeting, public hearing is.
Sorry, you guys don't get to meet yet. Okay, first I want to say congratulations to Mrs. Butterworth, Mrs. Butler, and Mr. B for becoming our 3 new board members. They worked hard along with me and many others in the community to make this possible. Yes, we finally did get our day in court. So now comes the real work, bring the change that you all campaigned for our school, our community, and the future for all of our students. Also, thank you for putting the public hearing back on for the agenda, because we've not been able to have a voice for a while that way. But I come tonight to talk about the income tax levy. I am one of the ones that sent you all an email about it. And I want this on the record for the community to know that it was discussed, because we didn't get to voice our concerns on it. We were just totally kept out of that. I do feel that the outgoing board did it hastily, that it should have been up to the new board, that the community overwhelmingly put 3 new board members in. And I think that decision should have been left up to you. I know there was some discussion tonight whether it can be done or it can't be done. It can be done. It can be removed from the ballot in March, because I have contacted the LaRosa's office and talked to someone. I've got the information. It can be removed. And as far as the cost that it was for it to be put on the ballot, I am publicly requesting that cost of how much it did cost to be put on the ballot, because it's my understanding that it was $10. You read the literature on how much it costs to be put on the ballot, it's $10. Now, I don't know if there's other costs to that. If there is, I'd like to know what that cost is. Anything can be put on the ballot or taken off the ballot. It is time sensitive as far as it being the March primary. I know the treasurer has said the reasons why. I totally disagree with that. It's being put on the March ballot so that there isn't that many coming and voting. It should be put on a November presidential ballot where the majority of the people do come and vote, and we do have our concerns voiced. We voted 3 new board members in. They should have had the opportunity to do this, not the outgoing board. I do feel that it is a power grab and overreach of our tax dollars that we have a say-so over. We do not have a say-so over government taxes. We do have a say-so over this tax. I have chaired levies for this school more than once, more than twice. This is a levy that I do not support as continuing. I do support levies in the school. The teachers will tell you, I have chaired that. I'm more than happy to support levies, but not on a continuing. That is taking our vote away. You're taking the vote away for any future residents, any future young voters to ever vote on this. It is an overreach and it's unfair. And I will vote no on this. I will also go out in the community and I will use all my resources to have this vote be no. So if you want to take that as a chance, I know that you are counting on this for money for the teachers, and we totally support and congratulate the teachers on their contract, and we want our teachers and them to be paid more. Due to the treasurer's report, we do have the money. I know it's only 50%, maybe 60%, but we're not going to vote this down as a renewal levy. We never have, and I can guarantee you that they won't. But by doing this, I think it's falsely, the old outgoing board has falsely put this out, and when the treasurer read that, it's one little blurb that's continuing. Most people are not going to see that, and I can guarantee that, but I'm going to make sure that it's going to be put out there publicly. And so with that in mind, I do ask you to reconsider to maybe taking it, removing it, and you've got plenty of time to put it back on for the November ballot. And I do want to know what the cost is, because it's my understanding when you go in and you put it on, it's $10. So I do request that to be done at the end. And, I ask you, don't take our vote away. Thank you.
I know we can have a discussion, but I couldn't make it, right? So I'd like to hear. One, I want to clarify that if I misspoke earlier when we did the unfinished business, if I said I should have said we, because we all collaborated, not collaborated, we, not outside of public. We all collected everybody's opinions on this email that she's referencing to. And so I should have said we as a board, not I. It's not I, it's a board that makes the board decisions. But I will say that this board was elected to represent the entire community. And during the vote for the 2 board seats that we have right here, there was 5,644 votes casted. In December, the board received 12 emails on this topic, and the board received 1 email in January. So in good conscience, I can't say that the entire community feels the same way that Mrs. Beam does. I understand her frustration. I understand what happened in the past, but we have got to stop looking in the rearview mirror and we've got to start looking forward. So I would ask you not to do a negative campaign and tell everybody not to vote for it. I would ask you to help spread the word of what they're voting for, and then put it out to the voters and let the voters have their word. That's what you want, is the voters to have their word. It's on the ballot. They will have their word.
I don't feel that the board, the outgoing board, put it out to the community what this really is.
I agree. I agree. And that's why we're trying to rectify it. The board was the board. It just had different members, but it's still the school board. It was a school board in December, it's a school board in January, same Bethel board, just new members. So we can't stop, we can't keep rescinding stuff that happened before because a couple people don't agree with it. 0.002% of the entire community based off of just this. I'm not saying there wasn't more, but it was a copy and paste email. All they had to do was copy, paste, and hit send. So if they were that disgruntled over this happening, we should have had thousands of emails in the inbox.
Oh, I totally agree with you that, but
And-
that's why I spoke tonight and had it come on the
Yeah.
record.
And so we're just asking you to channel that energy in a positive way and not a negative way. So rather than telling everybody why they shouldn't vote for it, perhaps just explain to them what they're voting for and then let them make that decision. And that's all.
Well, that would be your job to do that.
We
My
just did,
job,
we tried. That's what I'm
Right.
saying.
well, that
But
would be
we
your
need your
job to channel why this levy should go through. Me as a community member, I will channel why I feel it should not go through.
I'm just saying we're asking for help. So if you want more people to know, then it'd be helpful if more people help.
Issue 1 failed because they didn't know what the words were. They read the words, but they didn't read the words.
It's the way it's gonna be worded on the
Time's
ballot.
up. Time has been
Okay.
up for a long.
Yeah, so that's all.
But thank you for the discussion. That is refreshing. We've not had that before.
We're trying. And then the last one is Miss Reese.
Hey, it's not agenda item this time. So first, I'd like to say congratulations to the new members as well. And thank you for reinstating the work sessions. And also thanks to Jackie for wanting to plan for the future. I tried that too. So the rest of it is kind of from history background, as I recall it. So just wanted to let you know a couple things. On the limits, the 25,000 limit and the 50,000 limit, the construction was for the new construction, K5 in the stadium. That was one of the specific reasons we raised it to 50,000. And because that money had already been budgeted and approved. So it was not a blanket, this is how it's gonna be. But I just want to let you know that was specifically for the new construction. The second thing is the technology liaison. So I was the technology liaison, and the way that it was back then was the technology director here actually had, I can't remember exactly how frequently, but twice a year, maybe quarterly, had meetings with some of the teachers. And I was the board member who went to that and reported back to the board. And he was specifically trying to get input from them on what they needed and what wasn't working well and what needed to happen in the future. So, just wanted to let you know that, I'm not saying right or wrong, anything else, but that's what it started as. And then I guess, probably when he left, they kind of stopped. So just an idea. I mean, one of the reasons I wanted to be the liaison at the time was because I was concerned that we only had Chromebooks. I wanted to see some apples and some windows so that the kids got it right. So, so that was, the liaison was just another input, not running things. So the facilities committee. So this committee was set up because when this building here was built, it was done almost completely in private, behind closed doors, with the superintendent, 2 board representatives, and, you know, the architect and some other people, right? We had a for building that. And the public didn't know the building was gonna look like this until they opened the door. Because you guys know glass, all the fancy stuff. So the facilities committee that was put in place was to counter that. It was set up as a board appointed committee, which is different than what the previous superintendent, and which was Mrs. Potter. She had her own committees, right? There was a superintendent appointed committee. The superintendent appointed committee does not have to follow sunshine laws. They don't have to put out agenda, they don't have to put out minutes, nothing. So we did the board appointed committee because they do have to follow the sunshine laws, create an agenda, put the minutes of the meeting, right? So, and it was created though for all facilities. So not just the new construction, but if there was any renovation, and the idea was that we would have not only board members, but community input as well. So that's what the committee is made up of. The members of a board appointed committee are appointed by the board president. So you don't just get to say, I'm on it or I'm not on it, or, you know, come this week, but not next week. They're appointed and unappointed by the board president. So, and also it did not include maintenance. So you kind of talked about maintenance of like tires and stuff. That was not included. It was strictly facilities, like the brick and mortar kind of stuff. But it did include renovations and things, even though that wasn't really what was going on at the time. It was not just a construction committee. So initially I was the chair for that, and eventually turned that over to the superintendent when we first started. Also, that committee doesn't matter how many, how many members are on that committee. 1, 2, 5, none. It's still a board appointed committee, and you must follow the sunshine laws. So even if you don't have any members. The student, back to so for technology, I forgot to mention this, but there is a strategic plan somewhere. And there was an item in there for the technology director to create a plan. So as there was for basically every department. And the student liaison, which was not the student liaison at the time, but it used to be for the boosters. And originally it was only athletics, but I think the idea there was, you know, student activities, we can all go out and look and get the updates, but not everybody has interaction with the boosters. So it was, again, what do they need from, you know, do they need anything from us? What's going on with the boosters? So, thank you.
Thank you. And so as I asked before, you put all that in, and anything is added unfinished business. All right, I'd like to entertain a motion to go into executive session for the following reasons. 1, to consider appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of an employee or official, or the investigation of charges or complaints against an employee, official, licensee, or student, unless the employee, official, licensee, or student requests a public hearing. To conference with the board's, number 2, to conference with the board's attorney to discuss matters which are the subject of pending or imminent court action. And number 3, to discuss preparation for, conducting, or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with.
Yeah, it's 1, 3, and 4.
Oh, that's okay. And then can someone read? To discuss.
Is there any chance of votes after the executive session or?
No, that's it, we're just gonna do this. And then for the reasons enough for to discuss preparation for conducting or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions. So I got one, right? 1, 3, and 4. I move to go into the executive session. Stated.
I'll second.
We will put the motion to a vote, those that are in favor of going into executive session, Lewis, me, Brett Paul, Andrew, yes.
Better decision.
Hageman, please.
This is done.
I do really appreciate it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. You got a 3-year-old.
Session
Well,
is
because-
9:50.
Yeah.
Made a decision
You might as well start.
Oh, okay.
concept for the townships.
So we'll convene the executive session.
Nice talking to you.